Oh, yeah. You know, there's there's a lot of reasons why you would not want to give a person a dissolution of marriage. Now, it's one thing to petition a court; it's another thing to decree it. And without the actual practice of law, yeah, it's domestic violence. Now, as I was going through it, yes. When you don't give me court notices, yes. When you arrest me for crimes I didn't commit, when I send you the actual documentation, yes, that this is against the law and it is not the practice of the law because I never got actual notice of court hearings, yes. And every judge and justice of the United States of America is liable for your decision making. Judge Ken Williams, yes. She gave me a summons, and the sheriff's department arrested me at the same moment as giving me the summons. So when I got out of jail, right, I decided to wait 89 days. See, when you know somebody's being corrupt, yes. As in, you got paid per show, yeah. There's this big problem with the corruption of the actual requirements of the law. Now, there's what's known as the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. Yes. These rules, yeah, they are an obligation of the court to always do what the Superior Court rules require. Yes. That means that you can't arrest the person at the same moment as serving them. You can't say that they committed domestic violence when they didn't. When they're found not guilty and the records expunged, yeah, you can't reissue protection orders. Now, federal is kind of an important word. Yes. There are the federal rules of appellate procedure. Yes. The federal rules of criminal procedure. Yes. And then the federal rules of evidence. Yes. And then there's that FedWire. Oh, the Federal Reserve of the United States. That's a computer network. Yeah. Nearly instantaneous domestic money and securities transfer. You can actually transfer securities other than United States debt. Could you call the Federal Reserve of the United States Powell? Yes. We were just talking about the corruption doctrine. Let's say we were going to move an embassy to Jerusalem. Yeah. And I'm kind of thinking, no, I think we should keep it where it's at. Now, quite often, the executive branch, they get this idea, well, we have X number of trillions of dollars available to us. Let's just spend that money and do this. And the Fed Reserve accepts United States debt in exchange for the printing of Federal Reserve notes. Yeah. You know, I was just reading about, I think it was the Detroit Federal Reserve. Yeah. They got one of those Federal Reserves in the Detroit, or maybe it was the Michigan Detroit. Could you call all 12 right now? I just wanted to know, did anybody transfer any securities overseas or, there are Federal Reserve banks in lots of different nations. Now, I don't know if Israel has one of those. Could you get me the electronic communications with the nation of Israel? Now, I know a lot of people say, well, is he really that smart? Let's call a Mr. Bernanke. Pooch, Miss Yellen. Poop. How about Mr. Aspect himself, Greenspan? Ooch. A lot of these individuals have been Jewish, and I don't know if Powell's a Jewish or not. Yes. But you should not allow for your religion to affect your decision making when issuing Federal Reserve notes. Now, let's say I went to suing the president because his wife spent up X number of millions of dollars while he was in the White House and he didn't keep his family within the limits of the annual salary. And I said, well, did they use Federal Reserve notes to do that? I mean, did she go around to these various boutiques with hundreds of thousands of dollars in her pocket, spending the actual notes that the Federal Reserve Bank had issued? Now, quite often, yes, this idea of smart, yes, I'm really not that smart. If you compared me to the other geniuses of the world, he'd say, well, I'm at the lower end of it. Yes. But let's say I found out the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States was allowing for the use of Federal Reserve notes by the spouse known as the First Lady so she could go buy herself new dresses instead of the president. I know. It sounds stupid, doesn't it? Yeah. That is kind of like the Federal Reserve Bank. Just, why don't you give me all the employees of every Federal Reserve Bank and this idea of transferring securities? Yes. Now I can understand when you're instantaneously moving money, considering the number of notes that you issue each day. But the movement of securities, I'd like to know what securities that you can transfer on the Fedwire. Because the truth of the matter is, if it's not United States debt, let's say you decide to transfer some stock using various preferreds, yes, some treasury, corporate treasuries. There's always the possibility that these different computer networks are only for the use of the United States of America's debt, yes, or the actual currency that the Federal Reserve Bank issues. Yeah. Now, I know Milena wanted to go shopping tonight. It's one of those big nights there. It's Tuesday over here on the West Coast. It's fucking